So a mission for Revenue Funnel is to fundamentally change how business is done. We feel like it's way too adversarial in the ways that buyers and sellers interact, and then communities are angry and there's protests in the street and people are just not very happy. And I think with this culture of distrust that seems to be growing, particularly post-pandemic, when no one knows who to believe and they're not really thinking about, where do I go, what's going on in the world, we were really thinking about, well, what does that mean for sales? And what does it mean for the future of sales? So as part of our mission to fundamentally change how business is done, we said that we believe the future of sales is symbiotic. So what that means for us is it's a philosophy and like a go-to-market culture that companies adopt that provides like a new B2B ecosystem that benefits buyers, sellers, partners, and even the community it serves. And it's all about finding ways where you are really focused on delivering value. So the term ecosystem usually refers to partners that you partner up with to deliver business, but we say that the symbiotic sale goes way beyond just partners. And it's really about focusing on providing more spaces and opportunities for buyers and sellers and communities to interact with or without transactions taking place. And it's about remaining evolutionary fit. So how do you survive in that space? Well, you add value as a community member, as a partner in the ecosystem, as a seller and a buyer. So rather than having salespeople that are at the mercy of buyers and they have to beg for business, it's like, actually, this is a two-way interaction. You have to contribute, I have to contribute. Our partners have to bring value, and we have to make sure that we're not doing bad to the world at the same time. So we really want to create this new culture where people are thinking about good business. So we believe that the symbiotic sale is underpinned by 4 key pillars: trust, transparency, being cognitively aware, and also being convenient. So when we talk about trust, we like to say that trust is something that grants you permission to ask questions, and credibility is something that grants you permission to share ideas. Trust is defined as the firm belief in the ability, the truth, or the reliability of something or someone. So when you're thinking about that, how do we as salespeople, as buying organizations, to create this space that actually fosters trust? And this is really about developing rapport. So how do we connect with people? It's about establishing credibility. So how are we deemed as someone that can be trustworthy, as someone who you can believe in, as someone who almost establishes inherent authority in what they're saying? And this is both on the buyer and the seller side. Do I believe what you're saying? Can I trust that what you're saying is actually going to be true? It's about providing empathy. So how do we understand the feelings and the thoughts of other people? How do we step into their shoes? And again, it's not just on the salesperson. Buyers also have to understand that salespeople are just trying to do their job. They're being paid to improve the outcomes for businesses and individuals. Sometimes we get it a little bit wrong, but for the most part, they're really just trying to figure out, how can I disrupt your consistent pattern of status quo to improve your outcomes inside your organization? And they're just trying to figure out the best ways to do that. And that, in order for that to happen, there needs to be more openness and more trust on both sides. Trust is about deciphering verbal cues. So what are you saying, but also non-verbal cues? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? I like to call this like the subtext, or like the metadata. So what is being captured, but that's not being verbally said. What are you picking up on? Body language, behaviors, interpretations. So that's a big part of how we're starting to establish and think about trust. And when we think about trust over time, it's really about consistency. So it's not about showing up once, it's about consistently showing those behaviors over time across different environments, around different people. So for us, trust is a core component of the symbiotic sale, so making and creating an ecosystem that is mutually beneficial to all. So transparency is really about the practice of being much more open and honest in your business operations and how you're thinking about the world as well. So we like to say, let your prospects in your kitchen, but in the same way, buyers need to let salespeople in the kitchen too. So what is the makeup of your organization? And how open are you in sharing that? And at a time where people do not, they have low trust and they're not really believing what they're seeing or they're hearing, it's best if we are much more open in our communication. And there's little things that companies can be doing, and even when it comes to sharing pricing on the website, like just if you say click for pricing, show pricing. So we really think that transparency should be something that companies actively practice, particularly the go-to-market teams who are trying their hardest to knock down doors and actually try and get companies to make changes. They want their prospects to change their organization. So transparency for us is a key pillar inside that ecosystem of a symbiotic cell. With so much advancement in technology, and it's only gonna keep increasing and accelerating, we see convenience as a key part of the symbiotic cell and the ecosystem that's being created. So what that means is it's about reducing the friction inside all of the processes in our organization so that it makes decision-making easier for buyers. So if we think about that buyer journey that they go through, where they're looking at the pre-purchase stage and all the things that they're trying to work out and figure out, and then that post-purchase stage when they are a customer of ours and they're working with us to get the value that we're promising, we just want to make that easier. And we do that often by implementing technology and processes to make their experiences better. So we know that there's a lot of mental processes involved in decision making, and it's pretty complicated, particularly for buyers today. So we see another pillar that underpins the symbiotic cell being cognitive awareness. So how, as an organization, are we thinking about the mental processes of learning, thinking, knowing, and understanding that a buyer has to go through in order to make really complicated decisions for their business? So we see that our ability to improve our awareness of that means that we are better positioned to recognize when we're seeing biases, when we're seeing cognitive load, where we're seeing fear, fight or flight responses inside our interactions, so that we can support and facilitate them better. And that's where we want to lead with more empathy. So a key pillar to the symbiotic cell is really just improving our cognitive awareness. And that is really the 4 principles that come together to create the symbiotic cell.